Hey everybody, Boris, welcome to the crosses section for October 3rd through October 7th, 2016. And I think this week what's interesting about the crosses possibilities is not necessarily all of the cross commodity ideas that we had last week, most of which worked quite nicely. But I think the real story this week is going to be the risk-on, risk-off trade based upon the accumulation of U.S. data and all of the other political background that we have going on in the U.S. Story. And the focus, I think, this week is going to have to be towards the yen crosses one way or the other. We are at some very decent range highs, range lows in some of these trades. And a break one way or the other, I think, could definitely create some very interesting runs one way or the other. As well as to me, some cross commodity currency ideas. So the three things that I kind of wanted to take a look at this week, and might as well just look at the levels, and then I'll take a look at the charts and discuss them with you. I want to take a look at Euro Yen, Aussie CAD, and Aussie Yen, the two yen ideas as kind of risk on, risk off trades. There's a very, very wide range in the Euro Yen, 16 to the 112, to sort of honestly look at how we break down and break up. What I think could be fascinating here is the possibility of a downside break, which is not something that is conventionally considered to be the direction that we're going to see, because obviously everybody thinks that the U.S. data is going to be quite okay and that the Fed is going to be more hawkish than dovish off of this data. But if we have a series of disappointments in data sets, there's actually I think a double whammy that happens. Remember, every economic piece of data right now for the next 4 weeks is as much a political tool as an economic tool. It means, ultimately a single data set from a month really isn't going to tell you much about the value of the economy, but it's going to tell you a huge amount about the value of perception of the economy. And if we get a kind of a situation where we have bad U.S. economic data, that allows Trump to exploit the position tremendously, allows him to come back quite strongly, and could shift sentiment quite significantly towards his direction, irrespective of all of the problems that we had last week with his campaign that essentially self-destroyed. So the sort of non-conventional view, the interesting trade, the contrarian trade here could be to take the risk-off trade on the idea that, hey, everything, all the wheels could come off the bus. And in that case, of course, the Euro Yen and the Aussie Yen could be very vulnerable, I think, that it runs to the downside as the yen gets pulled towards the 100 level. I don't see too much upside in either one of those pairs to offset the downward move in the yen, and therefore it offers some very interesting possibilities. So Euro Yen 1612 on the upside downside, Aussie Yen 79 to 75 on a wide range. And then the other idea that I had was the cross currency trade, and this is sort of the idea here to me of relative strength of CAD. Aussie CAD looks like it's topped out at 101.50. This is a much quieter, much less volatile, out of the way trade, but maybe an interesting trade here, again, to take the Aussie to the downside on a relative basis. We took Aussie to the downside on a relative basis against the Kiwi last week. That worked, and I think it might work against the CAD this week as we go into the market. Let's take a look at the charts here and see how everything shapes up. So let's first look at the Euro Yen. So here's Euro Yen. And it actually looks quite bullish, right? So you have this very, very nice baseline. This 1200 is the key low. We're a couple hundred points above. 116 is really sort of the upper end of this range. But you could make a nice run to 116 if you're bullish the whole U.S. story. And that very well may be the easy conventional trade to take. But if we have a surprise here and the move begins to to the downside, I think the shock of the break of this support level could really usher in a very quick and very nasty little move to the downside. So while the technical and the fundamental view here is pro risk, I think the key thing to look at here is the potential of a surprise. And if we get a potential of a surprise, the anti-risk flows could really accelerate because it would take a lot of people by surprise as we go forward. Now, a less volatile trade, and I just sort of a pure conventional technical trade here. Aussie CAD topped out at 101.50. The move back up to 101.50 is very likely just going to be a retest of the double top, and it's very likely we could have maybe a failure of this move. So the idea here is you trade any kind of a bounce in Aussie, you would short against that on the assumption that the caddy would have relative strength in towards the end of the week and then move back down below parity as we go forward. That is an interesting, just sort of a technical trade for a double top on that particular pair. And then last but not least, here's the Aussie yen. And it looks very similar to Euro yen. This is really sort of the risk on, risk off trade. The signature is very, very similar in all of these things. I think the Aussie has potential here for a little bit further downside if you get negative surprise out of RBA, negative surprise out of Australian data, and certainly negative surprise on the risk flows. Again, this is not the trade that I would make now. I would wait to see some signs of serious risk aversion. But if we do get signs of risk aversion and a break of these 77 levels here, it would really suggest that the move here is much more to the downside than it is to the upside. You would have, of course, a series of lower highs, but more importantly, a break of the support level here could really open up the run towards 75s as risk aversion flows begin to accelerate. So the convention says buy the yen crosses. The fundamentals say buy the yen crosses for the time being, but any surprises could really create some very interesting opportunities the other way. Wish you guys the best of luck, the best of trading. Boris, over and out.